Hello, welcome to Chapter 2, an overview of the ICD-10-CM. This is our second chapter in Module 152, and it's the beginning of our diagnosis coding. So I'm excited. There's lots of neat information, and it's just, to me, it's really, really fun to do. I hope you guys enjoy this little journey with me. But right now we're going to do a PowerPoint slide, and there's some videos in there. Pull out your a notebook and a pencil and our pen and take some notes because there's some great things here. So here we go. I'm going to share my slide on my screen. And I have to wait for it to move out of the way. Here we go. So Chapter 2, ICD-10-CM. We're going to be doing an overview of the ICD-10-CM. So what does ICD-10-CM actually stand for? The International Classification of Diseases, 10th edition, clinical modification, ICD-10-CM. It is designed for the classification of patient morbidity and mortality information for statistical purposes. My goodness, that word kind of threw me. Statistical purposes, and for the indexing of health records by disease and operation for data storage and retrieval. So our classification system, the morbidity, which means illness. The mortality means death. ICD-10, International Classification of Diseases. WHO's ICD-10 is used globally, and WHO stands for the World Health Organization. ICD-10 equal 10-CM equals 10th revision. CM is clinical modification. And there's lots of continuity of data. Matter of fact, you're going to hear that there's actually an ICD-10, an ICD-11 in the works. Oh. So let's watch this little video together.
So, what is ICD-10? ICD-10 stands for International Classification of Diseases 10th edition. It's the new and improved updated version of ICD-9. Now, ICD-10 is split into two systems. ICD-10-CM, clinical modification for diagnostic coding used by all healthcare providers, and ICD-10-PCS, procedure coding system for inpatient procedure reporting used by hospitals. Why do we have to move to ICD-10? Two reasons. One, ICD-9 is over 40 years old. And two, ICD-9 has run out of room. There are just no more numbers to use. With new discoveries and diseases, the new ICD-10 code set is needed to keep up with the fast-paced changes in medicine today and to add more detail to diagnosis codes. Actually, the US is one of the last countries in the world to adopt ICD-10. We better get moving because they're already working on ICD-11. As you know, ICD-9 codes have only 5 mostly numeric digits with a few E and V codes thrown in for good measure. ICD-10 codes are alphanumeric with letters and numbers mixed in. Codes can have 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 digits. For comparison, ICD-9 has 14,000 codes, ICD-10 69,000. So you may ask, how am I supposed to learn 69,000 codes? Don't get too scared. A chunk of those new codes have to do with laterality, or location on the body. You will, though, have to know more about anatomy in ICD-10 when you look up a code in the book, because the index is laid out by organs and structures. The higher level of detail that ICD-10 offers will help standardize data for analysis and streamline the claim submission process. The extra detail will make the claims easier for payers to understand and pay, or so they say. And guess what law requires us to move to ICD-10? HIPAA. And you just thought HIPAA meant you couldn't tell your neighbor about your patient's nasty rash. When will ICD-10 be implemented? It's already been changed a few times. Will it be postponed once more? Only time will tell. Keep in mind that whenever ICD-10 takes effect, by not coding and documenting properly, your revenue and cash flow will suffer, and you will have to spend a lot more time correcting, appealing, and resubmitting claims. Oh, and did I mention that the AMA said it would cost practices thousands of dollars to implement ICD-10? Nuts, huh?
Okay, so you guys already know that that we have already implemented the ICD-10, and gosh, I've been doing this for probably it's been about 6 or 7 years since it's been implemented. Oh, sorry. Let's see if I can't get out of this really quickly. That's the only thing about these is it's hard to get out of them once we get in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is our index. And if you look to the right, that's figure 2.2 in your book, and it's example of main terms and subterms. So you see in the red, those are our main terms. Then you see the indented in the black lowercase, those are our subterms. I-10 index is alphabetic with main terms in bold type and subterms indented under the main term. So let's talk about the ICD-10-CM chapters. Okay, so chapter 1 is certain infectious and parasitic diseases, and that's A00 through B99. Chapter 2, neoplasms, C00 through D49. Chapter 3, diseases of the blood and blood-forming organs and certain disorders involving the immune mechanism, D50 to D89. Chapter 4, endocrine, nutritional and metabolic disease, E00 through E89. Chapter 5, mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopmental disorders, F01 through F99. Chapter 6, diseases of the nervous system, G00 through G99. Chapter 7, diseases of the eye and the adnexa, H00 through H59. Chapter 8, diseases of the ear and mastoid process, H60 through H95. Chapter 9, diseases of the circulatory system, I00 through I99. Chapter 10, disease of the respiratory system, J00 through J99. Chapter 11, disease of the digestive system, K00 through K95. Chapter 12, diseases of the skin and subcutaneous tissue, L00 through L99. Chapter 13, diseases of the musculoskeletal system and connective tissues, M00 through M99. Chapter 14, diseases of the genitourinary system, N00 through N99. Chapter 15, pregnancy, childbirth, and periperia, O00 through O98. Chapter 16, certain conditions originating in the perinatal period, P00 through P96. Chapter 17, congenital malformations, deformations, and chromosomal abnormalities, Q00 through Q99. Chapter 18, symptoms, signs, and abnormal clinical and laboratory findings not elsewhere classified, R00 through R99. Chapter 19, injury, poisoning, and certain other consequences of external causes, S00 through T88. Chapter 20, external causes or of morbidity, V00 through Y99. And our last chapter, chapter 21, factors influencing health status and contact with health services, Z00 through Z99. So let's talk about our tabular. Well, our tabular is where we open up our book and it's got the different colors. It's not our index, it's our tabular. Each section begins with a unique letter and codes arranged in numerical order. So R10, then you're going to have R10.0, R10.1, and then you see how the numbers, always starts with a letter and then it moves into a number. All codes in a chapter begin with the letter. Official instructional notations includes define or give examples of the category content. So I-10 has instructional notations providing guidance to the coder. Since the figures in this chapter are taken directly from Buck's ICD-10-CM for hospitals, you may notice extra symbols and notations meant to enhance the user experience in addition to the official notations that are part of the ICD-10-CM release. So if you see here, Chapter 1, Certain Infectious Diseases and Parasitic Diseases, A00 through B99, includes diseases generally recognized as communicable or transmittable. So that is called an includes note. Let's talk about excludes 1. Indicates the code excluded should not be assigned at the same time as the code above the excludes 1 note. So let's take a look. Here we have our includes that we just read for a certain infectious and parasitic disease section. Then underneath the pink includes, there is like a little peachy color. It says use additional code. And then it says excludes 1, certain localized infections, see body related chapters. So that's what this is going to exclude. So what is excludes 2? Excludes 2 note indicates the condition excluded is not part of the condition it is excluded from, and a patient may have both conditions at the same time. When exclude 2 note appears under a code acceptable to report and the excludes 2 code together. So I know that that sounds a little bit confusing, but as we get into coding, we'll be able to get into more of that. So excludes 2 means not included here. Code first, use additional code. I-10 has a coding conversion that requires the underlying condition to be sequenced first, followed by the manifestation. So code first, use additional code equals etiology, manifestation, paired codes. I know that let's get through the wording, and then we're going to have a video that's going to actually help you after this. Code also. That means more than one code is required. So let's take a look at D61.82. When you code that, you must also code the underlying disorders such as malignant neoplasm of the breast, C50 point, and you have to decide which one, or tuberculosis, A15 point. So that's what code also means. 7 character and placeholder. Codes less than 6 characters have that 7th character requirement, and you must use the X as a placeholder. Placeholder X is assigned for all characters less than 6 that require a 7th character. Okay, I am going to actually be showing you this a little bit later, but I just want you to understand that there are going to be some X placeholders, and sometimes you have to have a 7th character. And we'll be talking about that more in detail. But for now, let's watch our little ICD-10 video.
So, you're a healthcare provider, nurse, biller, or manager, and are used to the 5-digit ICD-9 codes. Heck, you got a bunch of those diagnosis codes memorized and can rattle them off the top of your head. Introducing ICD-10, with up to 7 alphanumeric characters. Let's take a closer look at how ICD-10 is formatted. ICD-10 starts out its codes with the first 3 characters identifying the category. The first character of the category is always a letter. The second and third characters can be numbers or letters. There is always a decimal after the third character, unless the code is made up of just 3 characters, which is the minimum number in the code set. The fourth character defines a subcategory and can be either numbers or letters and identifies the site, the cause of the disease or condition, the symptom, and or stage of the condition. The fifth and sixth character further defines specificity, such as location and laterality. Big word, but it just means what side of the body, left or right, as in big left toe. Some categories have a 7th character extender, which can be a letter or a number and changes the entire meaning of the description. For example, the 7th character could stand for initial or subsequent encounter. Some codes need the 7th character, but don't need the 4th, 5th, or even 6th character. So, what do you do in those cases? How nice that ICD-10 thought of that. It uses an X as a placeholder. ICD-10 does this to be able to expand the code set in the future to be more specific. So, as we go from 3 characters to 4, 5, or more characters, the diagnosis becomes very precise, which is the whole point of ICD-10. Oh, and did I mention? Your documentation has to be even more detailed nowadays too. Nuts, huh?
Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed our little lecture that we were doing for Chapter 2. I am going to be attaching another lecture for you guys probably tomorrow. I just want to show you how I've labeled my ICD-10. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.